Good morning and welcome to Harvest Church Sunday School. We are continuing our journey through the book of Daniel. Glad that you've chosen to get up and at 'em with us this morning, whether in person or online, or as they used to say when we were growing up, live. Is it live or is it Memorex? For the young folks don't know that. They're like, what? Oh, y'all remember that live? Remember that was the big deal. I'm surprised no one has brought that back in the marketing world today with all the online virtual replay stuff. But anyway, we're in the book of Daniel. Continuing that, we're in chapter 11, where we kind of started last week, and we'll just continue to move through that chapter. It's a lot, and so I don't in any way claim to be an expert in terms of this particular teaching, but I think I can give some insight that will help you grow and kind of have a little better idea of what kind of what God was doing during that time and what He's doing now. So, one of the things I want someone go to chapter 10. Someone go to chapter 10 for me. Just the it's gonna be the last verse. The last verse, and then someone else go to chapter 11. You can pull up. He has it pulled up, and then we're gonna go from that right into 11. Anybody got that? Anyone want read the last verse of chapter 10? It's up on the board. Continue. It is. Go to verse 11. I mean, chapter 11. In parentheses. Yeah. Sometimes we don't read the Bible the way it's written. Chapters and verses were added for us. So this was one single thought. He was going, "Hey, I'm getting ready to tell you this prophecy from the book of truth." And then for some reason, he felt the need to point out about Michael fighting, and then it's so much in that. Go back to verse 21 real quick of chapter 10. Just look how much information you can read over if you're not careful. That tells you and helps you. It can help your faith. But first, he said, "Now before I go take care of my business with helping my fellow angel, I'm going to tell you what is written in the book of truth." And then he just proceeds to say, "No one supports me against them except Michael." So this is telling you that there's what happening? Spiritual what? Warfare. And so often the church today wants to act like that doesn't exist. But here's the angel putting it back in parentheses. Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you this, but you need to understand I still have business to do. Undoubtedly, Michael wasn't finished defeating the enemy. He had just defeated him or detained him enough or distracted him enough that Gabriel was able to get through. And what can we learn from that spiritually? Sometimes our answers are delayed, right? And we give up and we stop praying. Sometimes our answer gets through, but God's not finished, and we stop what? Praying. What is this showing here? He was delayed. God answered. He was delayed. He showed up. He's going to give him an answer, and then he's going what? Back to finish the war, the battle, the fight. And so you need to continue to what? Pray. All right. And then verse 11, it continues in that parentheses. And so what did he tell us in the first part of that? See if you pick up anything that helps you with your faith. And as for me, in the first year of Darius the Mede, this is once again one of those ways that God gives you what? Historical pinpoints or pins in what really happened. You can literally go back and see, according to historical records, when this was. When did this happen? The first year of Darius the Mede. So you can identify what year it was and all of that. He said, I stood up to confirm and strengthen him. So then he's saying that he's going to go back and fight there with Daniel. The angel reminds Daniel that even unseen spiritual beings engaged in God's purposes, heaven is actively involved in the affairs of the nation, in the affairs of what's happening amongst us each and every day. And Darius the Mede, possibly the same as Cyrus the Great, regional ruler, was used by God to initiate the return of the Jews. So this is when they were returning back to the nation of Israel. Verse 2. We're just going to kind of go, we went through some of this last week, but we'll go through it quickly again. Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will arise in Persia, and then a 4th who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Israel. So verse 2 is talking about there's 3 kings after Cyrus. Boom. After this has happened, and I'm not even going to butcher up their names, but there was 3 kings, 530 to 522, Cambyses, Smerdis, and Darius were the kings, and it went from 530 all the way down to 486. Okay, and then in 486, the 4th king, which is famous for his invasion of Greece, this was also Esther's king. That was 486 to 465. So you can see how you can trace these things from a prophetic standpoint. If this book was written as a prophetic book, this is how you can show it out. And of course, we've gone through that. I'm not going to go back through and try to prove again. I believe it was written from the prophetic standpoint. And of course, that was Xerxes. He was the wealthiest and most powerful of the kings. And God foretold that with pinpoint accuracy. You see what I'm saying? Like, you may say, well, what does that have to do spiritually? I don't know that it has anything to do with spiritual things, except for the entire book of Daniel is a book about kings and kingdoms and how God knows which ones are going to come to power. And he foretold them. And he says that there's no God like me that can tell the end from the beginning. This is one of the absolute, unquestionable, distinguishing points that makes God different than all other gods. Not only does he claim to be the God of gods, he also claims to be able to foretell the future, and he does it through the word. Verse 3, then a mighty king shall arise who shall rule with great dominion and do as he will. Okay? So after Xerxes, there's going to be this mighty king who comes, and he's going to rule with great dominion and do as he will. And this references Alexander the Great. Anybody question whether Alexander the Great rose? Because remember, at the time that these kings were coming to power, the Persian and the Medes were in power. Then this great mighty king came and arose and conquered them, and he was in power, or his kingdom. Alexander the Great in the Greek Empire was 336. I think it was 100 plus years, and he was in power from 336 to 323 BC. He was very young when he died. He was about 33 years old, but he conquered Persia and ruled, for quite a while. Some people say 32 to 33 years old. So any questions on that so far? And all I'm taking us through is that these are all the prophetic things that were listed in the book of Daniel. Some of them we'll get to the point where some of them have very, very specific spiritual things, but this is God's prophetic word of showing kings and kingdoms come and go, but he is eternal. Verse 4 says, and as soon as he has risen, his kingdom shall be broken and divided toward the four winds of heaven. Well, when that was written, that didn't make any sense, right? But when he died, his kingdom did not go to his children. It went to his four generals. Kind of makes sense, right? He was 33 years old. His kids, I don't know if he had kids, they weren't going to be very old anyway. But it went to his four generals, and they ruled the north, south, east, and west. The two that ended up, there was Cassander, which was Greece and Macedonia. Lysimachus was Thrace in Asia Minor. That was their area. And we don't hear about them in the scriptures moving forward. The next two, Seleucus and Ptolemy, we hear about them. They take Syria and Mesopotamia, is the king of the north, and Ptolemy is Egypt as the center of what they do, and that's the king of the south. Okay, so the rest of the time you're going to be reading this chapter, you're going to hear about what? King of the north and the king of the south, and them going back and forth. And if you had a map, you would see that on that map, the king of the north, king of the south, and literally right where they butt up against each other is Israel. And I believe that God was showing Israel. Remember, this is prophecy for who? The Israelite people. And they are going to be pulled back and forth, marched through and over and back and forth. And I believe that God was letting them know, I see what's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Just stick with it. They're divided into those four kingdoms. And then verses 5 and 6, if you put up 5 and 6, says, the king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he and will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years, they will become allies. So, excuse me. So the first thing you see, who were the two kings? Seleucus and Ptolemy. So at one point, Seleucus was under Ptolemy. That's what it's telling you. If you go back to verse, you don't have to go back to verse 5. The king of the north, what does it say in verse 5? The king of the south shall become strong, but his offspring shall prevail. And that's talking about one of his generals will become strong. And so Seleucus becomes the ruler of the north. Now, I don't fully understand the timing of it. I think that he had been under him before the division, not afterwards, if that makes sense. I think that he had been under Ptolemy, serving before the division happened. And then when it was set apart, of course, he was there. But you can go back and study it if you want to dig deeper. And then it says here, now this is where you all thought last chapter was fun to follow. Wait till you try to follow this. The daughter of the king of the south, the daughter of Ptolemy, will go to the king of the north, which is Seleucus. So Seleucus, the daughter of Ptolemy will go to Seleucus to make an alliance. Got it? So they're going to use marriage alliance. And by the way, all of the kings are referred to, like when you read it, it's like Ptolemy the first and now Ptolemy the second. You're already at the point where it's Ptolemy the second. Now, you all please don't think I remember all this. I just study this and have my notes. I can't keep up with all of this stuff. But Ptolemy the second gave his daughter Berenices to Antiochus the second, who is one of the Seleucian kings of the north. Okay, so you got that. Berenice is the daughter. She is now where? She is a daughter of the king of the south who's married to the king of the north. They're going to make an alliance. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? Seleucus used to be under Ptolemy, so there's no surprise that the two of them, and if the two of them, remember, there's still two other kingdoms out there that used to be the Greek Empire. These two, maybe they were planning to work together or something and become great together. That's why he gave his daughter. But look what happens. She will not retain her power, and he and his power will not last. So the king of the south, the king of the south daughter is going to marry the king of the north, but in hopes of building an alliance, but it doesn't last. It doesn't hold power. In those days, she will be betrayed. So Berenice is betrayed, together with her royal escort and her father and the one who supported her. Now, here's the interesting part. The king of the north was married at this time, divorced his wife, Laodices, and that's who came back and later murdered Berenice, her son, and reclaimed her throne. So, what can we learn from that? If God has deemed the thing as such, what's that? Yeah, without a doubt, it's definitely right. Look at, but think about the craziness of this being written without any names. Just, hey, the king of the north is gonna send, the king of the south is gonna send his daughter to marry the king of the south, and to build an alliance. The king of the north is gonna divorce his wife so that he can marry the daughter, thinking that they're gonna build an alliance. But then the king of the north gets that daughter, really as a setup, allows his wife, who he's still in cahoots with, to kill her son, and take all his stuff. That's about right. So, but the whole point behind this is just the craziness of like if you were gonna make something up, think about it. If you were gonna make something up, you'd be like so general. If you were trying to trick people and deceive people, hey, this king's gonna marry this king, and that king's gonna, instead of the specifics of the South and the North, then you can go back and kind of retrofit everything if you do general. But this is so specific around around that, and so Laodices reclaimed the throne of the north for her son Seleucus II. So, all right, verse 7. One from her family line, this is one from Berenice's family, will arise to take her place. Got it? So Berenice, who was killed, who had married the king of the north, someone's going to take her place. That's her brother. Her brother ends up taking her place, one of her family. It was her brother. Let me see if I have his name. Well, they just call him Ptolemy III. And he will arise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north and enter his fortress. He will fight against them and be victorious. So now who's the ruling kingdom? If you're Israel right there in the middle, now the south is back in control because of Ptolemy III. All right? Huh? Right. But you could imagine, and now these are generations between what we're talking about and leaders and kids growing and all this. We're already at Ptolemy III. So that tells you this isn't like this week, next week, next one. This is like generation plus. I should have looked up the years, but I didn't. But he avenges her death by attacking the Seleucid kingdom and temporarily defeating them. Verse 8. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, and their valuable articles of silver and gold and carry them off to Egypt. And this is where the commentary said, if your gods can be stolen, you probably need new gods. Right? If your gods can be packed up and stolen and taken, you probably carried away, you probably need new gods. For some years, he will leave the king of the north alone. Okay? So there's peace, right? For a season in terms of what happened. Then the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but will retreat to his own country. So the king of the north the king of the south, Ptolemy III, has decided what? I'm not going to attack you anymore. I'm going to let you go. I've defeated you. But the king of the north decides, and remember, this is the Middle East. This is Egypt as the center and Syria and we still see what today? These countries in some ways, not necessarily the same two, still going back and forth and attacking each other, etc. So, verse 10. His sons will prepare for war. Now, whose sons? King of the north, right? It says he attacked, he invaded, but then he retreated back to his own country. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army which will sweep on like an irresistible flood and carry the battle as far as his fortress. So some of Seleucus II, the sons of Seleucus II, Seleucus III is ready to jump into this thing. Verse 11, then the king of the south will march out in a rage. So north attacks with a great army. Now the south is attacking, rage, and fight against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but it will be defeated. Okay, verse 12. When the army is carried off, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousand, yet he will not remain triumphant. So the king of the south, who has a big army? The king of the north. But who wins? The king of the south, right? Remember, this is all things that God predicted through Daniel hundreds of years earlier. And the typical way is the king, it intentionally said the king with the large, massive army who started this is going to lose. And that's exactly what happened. Seleucus III, he was killed early. Antiochus III reclaims territory and defeats Ptolemy IV. And Seleucus and Antiochus were in the same kingdom. Okay, all right. The cycle of revenge and war shows just how unending conflict apart from God's peace can be. All right, now these I'm going to read. These are this is kind of back and forth for about 6 verses. Verse 13. For the king of the north will muster another army larger than the first. By the way, there's 130 something distinct prophecies in this chapter. Okay? Like larger than the first. Like all of that is criteria for this to be wrong. If in verse 10, if the king of the north has another army, but it's not larger than the one that he had before, which was what? A larger army than the one he had before, all of this goes away. I mean, it makes falsehood into the prophecy. So, right. And after several years, he will advance with a huge army fully equipped. Next. In those times, many will rise against the king of the south. So now it's not just who? It's not just the king of the north. There's in those times, many will rise, not the king of the north, but others will rise against the king of the south. Those who are violent among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. Go back. Who do you think? Those who are violent among your own people. Who is he talking to? Daniel. Who was Gabriel talking to and giving this prophecy to? Daniel, right? So right here, all of a sudden, Israel has been kind of what? Just kind of in there, and there's been nothing said about Israel. We don't know where they fall in the battles that have happened, but then it says all of a sudden, Israel, those who are violent among the Israel people, Daniel, your own people. So he's talking to Daniel. So this is where Israel jumps into it as far as from a prophetic standpoint. Will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but they will not be successful. Okay? Next. Then the king of the north will come and build up siege ramps and will capture a fortified city. The forces, so king of the north is doing his thing. Forces of the south will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand. Next. The invader will do as he pleases. The invader is the king of the north at this point, right? No one will be able to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. The beautiful land, I believe, references Israel. And so part of what's happening, I need to keep going. He was determined to come with the might of his entire kingdom and making an alliance with the king of the south. So they've been fighting, and now they're going to do what? They're going to align again. They're going to try it again with the different daughter. And he would give him a daughter. So the king of the south gives the king of the north a daughter. The time before it was the king of the what? The king of the south giving the king of the north a daughter. And what happened? The king of the north, who divorced his wife to marry that daughter, ends up actually still being aligned with that his first wife just to get power. Right? She ends up, his first wife ended up killing his second wife. Now this is the same way. The south gives him a daughter, gives the north a daughter again in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom. Did you pick up on that? This time the south gives a daughter, but he did it with intent of what? The time before, the king of the north married with the intentions of tricking the south. This time the south says, oh yeah, we'll align with you. And so he gave the daughter, but it was a ploy by the south in order to overthrow the kingdom. But his plans will not succeed or help him. Watch. So, do y'all understand what happened? Verse 18. Wait till you see what happens. Then when let me go back and tell you what happened in verse 17. His daughter, Cleopatra, not the movie Cleopatra, to Ptolemy to gain influence, but then she sides with Egypt. So she turned on him. The king Antiochus gave his daughter to the south. I said that wrong. Antiochus, the king of the north, or Syria, gave his daughter to the king of Egypt, the south. And then when she got in there, she decided to align herself with Egypt, or the king of the south, versus with her dad. So there you go, right? For all the parents, you see, you don't be making no plans based on your kids' faith. I don't know if that was supposed to be part of the whole teaching lesson. I don't know if that was the whole teaching. I don't know if that was a teaching point or not, but maybe Miss B gave that came from Miss B. So. Come on in, Barb. He's right here. All right, verse 18. Then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them, but a commander will put an end to his insolence and will turn his insolence back on him. So that you can see it goes back and forth. Next. After this, he will turn back toward the fortresses of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. So, verse 20. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor in a few years. However, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. Seleucus IV, Philopator, son of Antiochus III, imposes heavy taxes to pay Rome. He is assassinated, paving the way for his brother. So, and that's what verse 20 there is talking about. So we don't have time to get into the next part. The next part, verses 21 through 35, talks about a king called Antiochus IV. Remember, he doesn't, well, you don't know this yet. He doesn't come to royal power the same way the other ones did. All right, it says no battle. But this is where verses 21 through 35 is it runs on dual paths. It runs on actual history of what's happening in this kingdom, in this time, during this era, 175 to 164 BC, but it also foretells of the Antichrist, okay? But it's both historical and future telling. The interesting part there is this is where the Christian scholars and many scholars who say that this book was not prophetic, they say this is where it was written at this time when this happened. After this happened, they're saying, oh, someone wrote it and wrote it backwards as if it was written prophetically. So in other words, they're saying that the Bible is written based on a lie, which to me, I don't see how do you call yourself a Christian and then say the Bible, part of the Bible was a falsehood written backwards. And the reason they have to say that is because after verse 35, it skips from here all the way to the end times. and starts talking about the actual Antichrist. The last few verses of this section, 21 through 35, kind of, you can go back and read it. It talks about the abomination that causes desolation and all those things in this, which Jesus also references later. So, all right. So if you want to be ahead of the game, read 21 through the end of the chapter. Remember, in 21 through 35 is actual history and what has happened, but it also has a prophetic angle into forward thinking. I think he may be the first true type and shadow of the Antichrist, because it literally has some of the same things that Revelation references in this particular passage of Scripture. Then verse 36 on really talks even more about the Antichrist. Okay? And we'll go from there. Father God, thank you so much for today, an opportunity we have to study your word, read your word, know your word. May it help us to become all that you intended for us to be. May you continue to bless us and help us to grow, mature, and develop as your people. We love you, we thank you, and we bless you, and we ask that you bless our time of worship and the word that's